Excellency, for joining us. Let me begin, since I know you are short of time. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Ambassador Yao Jing. And I don't know how we can do that on the web, but at least we can clap a little. But thank you very much for joining us. PIDE welcomes you, and I don't need to give you a long introduction. China needs no introduction in Pakistan, and you certainly don't need no introduction in Pakistan. You know Pakistan well. You've been here before, and you are well known to Pakistan. And yes, of course, Pakistan and China are very close, and we rely on China for much. But most important of all, what we want to rely on China for is knowledge. And that's why we called you, invited you that, look, if you could help us understand this COVID problem, as well as the aftermath of the COVID problem, what should we expect from this? It is changing the world order. And we have, we were going very well on CPEC and OBOR, etc. with China. We were doing development, and now things have gone awry. So those are the kinds of thoughts that people have in mind, but I will not say much. We want to hear you more than we want to hear me. So, Ambassador, with that, let me welcome you to, give us a talk, and then we'll have a brief question and answer session, then we'll move on.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a great honor that you could kindly organize this very relevant and prompt kind of a discussion about coordinating the control and the COVID-19 and the economic and the social development. This is very timely, and I definitely would like to share with you and your colleagues about what China has done and what. But one thing I make clear: I'm no professional, especially on the medical issues. But I would like to just give you a broad briefing about the chronicle of China's dealing with this kind of challenge. Sir, I think first of all, I have to comment that PIDE issued quite a lot of research, quite a lot of experience and wisdoms in this regard. And we are right now following the Pakistani government and the Pakistani society. That's for the challenge. I would like to say is that for China, on the 8th of April, that the center of this epidemic, Wuhan, has been opened. But that is a kind of turning point. That means China has more or less succeeded in controlling this epidemic. But unfortunately, that right now, this kind of pandemic or this kind of outbreak of the virus reached towards most of the international, globally, reached out to the globe. So the whole, I should say, dynamics have changed. Previously, China, since December 2019 till the March, basically it is a kind of campaign within China in trying to control, because we had the largest number of affectees, of confirmed cases. So far, still in China, we still have more than 3,000 patients and confirmed cases under treatment. And for China, I think because all the countries have the different conditions. So from the very beginning, China made a very difficult decision. That is total lockdown, 1.4 billion population. For example, in the Wuhan, this city has about 11 million people. And the province of Hubei, where this capital, Wuhan, is located, has more than about 16 million people. So we made a very difficult decision. We totally locked down. The government, the president, prime minister, they personally organized, like the National Command and the National Coordination Authority from the very beginning, early January. And we put our focus first is that to understand understand the tracing, understand the major outbreak area of these diseases. And we found that this province of Hubei and Wuhan is the focus. So we locked down, and we have a one-by-one tracing system. This, I think, delivers. This delivers. And all the other provinces, we totally have 31 provinces. And all the other provinces also adopted the similar measures of lockdown. It will take a huge cost, and it's quite costly. Second is that after we tracing, testing, and quarantining that the major areas, then we have to find a way to keep them survive. So we put our focus on first is the treatment. We could not afford a large number of fatalities. So within, I think, 2 weeks, all the provinces of China, they send their medical teams to Wuhan and to Hubei province. Totally, we have more than 300 medical teams, more than 420,000 medical doctors were sent to this province and the city for the treatment. And as you know that, we also established in a very short time several major hospitals, basically called isolation hospitals, to try our best to take all the patients to hospitalized. This is another key, to keep these patients treated. And meanwhile, we organized a huge, we call it community-based teams to keep the logistical support for those people who are in the lockdown. And for this, the government, the provincial and the federal government, specially organized special channels for the logistical, for food, for daily commodities, and also for the, I should say, for the channels to be open for all that. In this regard, I think that in the meanwhile, the people under the lockdown could have the basic need of their daily lives. But meanwhile, all the patients and all the confirmed could be traced and quarantined and treated in a proper way. So within, I think, 3 weeks, I think by the middle of March, we see the peak or the ceiling of the cases in Wuhan and Hubei, because this is a kind of benchmark for Chinese other provinces. Although we do have some other cases in other provinces, relatively they are small in number. They are not big scale of outbreak. So by the middle of March, we found that the ceiling over there. But for the sake of the certainty that in the middle of March, we have another kind of measure that is door-to-door, house-to-house separation. We go to every house, every home to check these people, our citizens, whether they have the symptoms or not. If they have these symptoms, we took them to the hospitals. So this we call the totally 100% isolation of the affectees. This is one. Second is that we use all the resources possible trying to find some kind of way, because this is unprecedented. This is a kind of challenge never dealt with by China. So we developed different protocols. So far, we have issued 7 protocols on the treatment and the diagnosis. All these protocols are available in the website. We share how to diagnose, how to treat, how to medicate these patients from critical side, from the slight symptoms and this. And the second is that we also published 6 editions or versions of the protocol on the prevention and control of this diseases. These are all also shared with on the website and the website. Of course, we are also asked our experts to develop the final solution, vaccine, and the medication. Right now, we have presented 4 major medications to the WHO for them to check. We also use the Chinese herbs, which are quite effective, but I think that is a little domestic and local. Vaccines, I think right now we have entered into the experimental stage. I don't know when the vaccines will be available, but this is the job right now. We are doing our every effort to do that. After the late March, when this pandemic has been reaching out of China, that is right now affected almost all the countries in the world, then the whole dynamics changed, because right now China right now relatively in a convenient, comfortable stage. However, we have to. So right now for China, our major focus first is that we are doing our everything possible to prevent this disease from coming back to China from other countries. Second is that we have to pay a lot of attention for the possible second outbreak in China, because still there are some community-based outbreak or cases developing in China in different areas. But meanwhile, we see the responsibility. We also want to exert or share experience with the international community, trying to help, assist in dealing with this challenge. So far, I think that we have extended our material experience as well as our expertise with the international community, including Pakistan. And this is, I think, as far as the disease is concerned, as far as this virus is concerned. But I think more importantly is regarding the economic and social development. Because when dealing with this, I should say, is an unprecedented challenge that we have to look after the life, the common people of the society, especially for the countries with a large population like Pakistan, like China. So since the middle of March, our government has promulgated or has decided that on the one hand, that when we are still locking down these major provinces, which have the largest number of the cases, for those other provinces which don't have a lot of cases, we are going to revive the production, revive economic activities. So far, right now, I can share with you is that 80% of China's economy, or 80% of our production has revived. But unfortunately, you know that China right now, it is in a global chain of supply, and even that China by itself, we could not take up the whole chain of production. So that is another reason that for China to do its best to assist, to help other countries to overcome this, because this is a global market. We cannot survive, or we cannot have our own production within China, only China. So this is a global effort. China is right now joining this. But I think in Pakistan right now, it is still in the stage of the development, which is unfortunate. But I appreciate your government, Prime Minister Imran Khan, and other ministers, your cabinet, your society, have adopted quite prompt actions and measures. So you can see that right now that the increase of the confirmed cases relatively is not as big as we had expected. Since 28th of March, there was a Chinese expert delegation. Basically, they are composed of the two parts of the people. One is the prevention and control. Second is for the medication and the medical experts. They are still here. They have visited Karachi. They have visited Lahore and Islamabad. According to their understanding assessment, that the situation in Pakistan is still in developing. We cannot see when that the ceiling or that the real final stage of the outbreak will come. But according to their first, they thought that Pakistan has adopted these measures among the first. Second, that the government is looking into a kind of coordination, similar one. Maybe not as locked down as China, but to some that to keep the social distance, wearing the mask, creating a kind of awareness. Thirdly, your medical team is quite strong, especially for the major hospitals. So you can see that the fatality in Pakistan is relatively lower than other countries, and they are devoted. Fourth is that they saw that your traditional habit, which I may not comment, but for the hygienes and for the daily habit, which is quite helpful, to contain this, because but they do have some kind of suggestions. Basically, first that they suggest right now the focus should be put on the testing, tracing, and quarantine, because so far right now the report of the cases, they are too much scattered from this district, that district. So far we cannot say that a certain division or district is the major affected area. If we can locate them and we put the lockdown basically on these, we call the red areas, that could be more effective. Second is that their awareness, because the situation in Pakistan is different from China. So the awareness should be further promoted and strengthened. The people, there are some, for example, daily wagers. They have to go out and so the government is trying to look after them. However, that the awareness should be further promoted, because we see that there still are some community activities or careless movements of the people. And thirdly, that the medication resources might be more balanced or more extensive to especially the testing facilities should be extended to a much bigger population and a bigger area. There are these kind of suggestions, and we have duly conveyed this suggestion to your authorities. For our understanding, maybe that with these efforts by the government, by the society, by the population, maybe by the late this month or early next month, we can see maybe a kind of ceiling. I can't say how many cases would reach at that stage, but we are a little more confident is that with the further strengthening of the awareness and the measures, the situation in Pakistan hopefully won't be very bad. In this regard, Pakistan is our first is a neighbor. Second is basically is our best friend. And thirdly, I think Pakistan, as your Prime Minister said, is also trying to balance their approaches between the controlling virus and economic development. So we fully understand that this kind of dilemma or this kind of difficulty. So for China, that we are, as far as the prevention of the virus is concerned, we are provided the maximum number. So all the countries, I think Pakistan gets the maximum assistance support as far as the medical equipment and this expertise sharing. And I think almost every week, several aircrafts are sending these masks, ventilators, or whatever to Pakistan. Second is that we are from the very beginning, in fact, starting from late January, that we are sharing all this information with your health authorities on this. So you can see that although that our regular flights between China and Pakistan haven't been stopped during the February and the early March, but there's no case coming from China, because we also shared a very strict measures for all the travelers between China and Pakistan. But right now, I think China is also sharing this expertise and experiences with Pakistan in 100% extent. And thirdly, that we know that right now, for example, like you mentioned, CPEC in China, China is, of course, is doing everything possible that to stabilize your economy. For example, your prime minister is very worried about the debt service and relief. This definitely China will join that and through our channels. For example, that right now in Pakistan we have about 25,000 Chinese. Mostly they are working on the CPEC project. We have already asked all the companies they should not stop their operation, their work, and totally about 60,000 Pakistanis are working on different sites. So we also ask them that no one should be laid off. Right? If they have the temporary leaving or leave, they should be paid fully. They should be paid fully. And thirdly is that we are not asking that there's some kind of panic maybe, but we are keeping the Chinese community calm here. So far, only one case in Pakistan that a Chinese was affected, but he is an individual businessman. Right now, is well quarantined. But at this stage, we were having a bigger, I should say, a bilateral financial and economic cooperation package. After this meeting, I'm going to meet the advisor, Mr. Hafiz Shia. Basically, we are going to discuss how can China, because a relatively stable economy or economic movement or economic policy will reinforce the prevention and control of this virus. So this is roughly, I think, right now, which what keeps me quite engaged. For example, I have to follow all the measures here. I have to follow all the development here, and also I have to engage your government, your economic department, to see how can China, how can China to facilitate and help in this regard. But I want to emphasize at this stage that this is a global challenge. At this stage, exactly as the Secretary General of the UN advocated, that we should adopt a kind of policy that is unity, collaboration, and cooperation. Let's deal with this virus first. There are some countries which are quite politicized, and they have a kind of a lot of discussion or media propaganda regarding the responsibility, regarding the origin, regarding the the duties also in this. I think that this is something. These are something that at this stage is not very so urgent. People are dying, people are suffering, and when we are faced with this kind of I say unprecedented challenge, all the international community should get together and to find a kind of quick, effective, and I think, humanitarian control of this disease. Right now, in China, we are relatively having a kind of regular life, but we still have some measures. For example, right now we don't encourage or allow the foreigners to visit to China because we found that a lot of import cases, more than 1,000 since the past 2 weeks, are already coming back in China. They are mostly Chinese. They are affected abroad. So we still have a little lockdown, on the national basis. Second is that we still have a very strict tracing mechanism. For example, my son, he was studying in UK, Edinburgh. He came back by a commercial flight late last month. He should be going to Beijing, but he is put at a kind of quarantine facility about 500 kilometers away for 2 weeks, having 4 tests before he is allowed to go back to Beijing. So we have a still very strict tracing and quarantine. Thirdly, we are trying to, of course, look after the foreign community. There are some, for example, Pakistanis. Right now, still we have, I think they still have 20,000 Pakistanis living. Previously, some of the students, they were stuck in Wuhan. Right now, there are maybe some of them, they may choose coming back or they may choose staying over there. But right now, the transportation is a little problem. But we have to look after all the foreigners, all the foreign citizens to be looked after. Finally, of course, China is extending its whatever possible efforts to cooperate with the international community in dealing with this. So right now, in fact, our foreign ministry, all the Chinese embassies out of China, right now we are more busy than when the things were happening in China. So this is what I just a little brief introduction about this, and I would like to see what kind of questions I'm not an expert in this regard, so forgive me that this is very simple and layman briefing. So.
Thank you very much. Let me just say that, it's always a pleasure to hear you because you're very concise, very clear, and very direct, even though you always tell us very humbly that you're not an expert, but you gave a talk as if you were an expert. There's a lot of ground that you covered. I just have a quick question before I ask my colleagues to comment. Ambassador, 2 things that perplex us purely from the economic point of view. Although we've got public health specialists here too, but we are just basically trying to focus on both public health and economics. On economics, what concerns me is, as you said, we have a very large, and this concerns the Prime Minister too, we have a very large population of casual workers, of daily wage workers, and the poor people. I think China, well, you're better off than us and you're much more advanced than us, but you still also have similar problems. How did you handle those people? And 2, I think we should also start thinking about when we come out of the corona, like you have come out of the corona, maybe we'll take a month or 2, maybe we'll come out of it. How can we plan a recovery? I mean, what are the policies that China is adopting for a recovery, especially in a global, I hate to use the word recession, but at least there is a global recession kind of on. What should the government do for a recovery? So, I mean, if you quickly, briefly tell us about these 2 questions, and I'll move on to my colleagues.
I think these are very legitimate concerns. For the Chinese, you know that we have a huge population, which are also based on the factories and on this. And you know that when this outbreak came, it was the so-called, we call the Spring Festival. Spring Festival is in I think late January and early February. So unfortunately, all these people, they are back at home at that time. They were back at home. So they could not travel. They could not get this kind of income because after Spring Festival, they are supposed to go back to the factories and this. But we stopped. So for this low income, or that daily wage workers, or this we call the labor, basically, because they are the most indeed, that we adopted our, we call the social welfare system, We didn't like your government is doing that, send some cash, send this and do that. But we are going to the different, we say that we have a system called social welfare system. They can draw their income in advance by the government money, because if they are getting these wages, so that all the villages, all the communities, that they have to look after this low income population when they could not go back to their work according to the schedule. Then, but this lockdown took about 3 months. So these 3 months is basically we are engaging, and each and every province we are given that they have to look after the basic daily necessities on the community level, and or we call the village level, because like you, we are also in the very basic units. But different provinces have the different criteria. For example, like in Tibet, we have only one case for the whole period. So they don't have a lot of this kind of problem. But there are a lot of labor, they could not come out of Tibet. So they have to use this government budget to support this. Second, regarding the recovery, China, I think I agree with you, a recession definitely is coming. And China as a major part in the global chain of the supply and the production, definitely we are very, very worried. So how can we deal with this recovery? For China, right now, our government has adopted four measures. One is that to mobilize our own production, which that's the major of the supply chain or production chain is within China. Then this is the focused area, because, for example, food, for example, daily commodities, for example, oil and petroleum, this kind of products for the daily life, they are priorities. So this kind of for the social welfare supply chain, they are the first. Second is that we are trying to stabilize our market. We are monitoring the price, supply, and especially for the grains and all this. So we are monitoring, and the government has already adopted some measures to keep the market stable. The people's life should not be affected. Thirdly, we are encouraging the export-oriented sectors. Why? Because China supplies most of the raw materials or machinery or these things. Although right now we focused on the export-oriented. Although that right now the medical sector is the main booming sector. They are having a lot of orders. Finally, that we have a kind of global initiative. We joined the G20 and the other global like this debt or whatever economic package, stimuli package for that. So this is China is playing its due role in the global and also bilateral, like with Pakistan, all these things. So this is, I think, what can China. But so far, frankly, you are an expert in this kind. We don't know how deep, how far away this recession could move. We are very, very concerned and worried.
You're absolutely right. It is very, very worrying. It's a deep recession. But let me bring in my colleagues. Folks, if anybody has a question, Ambassador only has 7 minutes. So, no, I think 12 minutes. So please make it short and pointed and let the ambassador answer. Anybody wants to go first?
I have a question.
Hello, who is it?
Nadeem, I have a question.
Okay, Samia, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador. And it is as usual, very impressive in many ways, the response that you put together. My question is that what was the procedure for you to explain and communicate to your public what the government's plan was, and what was the methodology that was used to communicate that?
Madam, I think that this is exactly when at the beginning stage, early stage, the Chinese people, Chinese citizens, were quite in a very panic situation. That you can see that a lot of reaction which are creating a kind of chaotic situation in China. So for us, because we put our responsibility to the community. Because Chinese people, they are living in a certain, for example, we call it residential area, and they have a kind of local community organization, and this organization will take over all this responsibility. They visit them, they help them, and they trying to pacify. So that is one of the reasons that go to the door-to-door efforts for the help. Second is that we trying to do our best in the tracing and education of the patients, because with the increase of the patients, the people are prone to panic. They are more and more concerned. But when we are trying to treat them and trying to control this outbreak, then the people are more or less, they are more relaxed or more others. Thirdly, is that basically we look into the concerns or looking into the necessities of the different type, as the professor mentioned, that for example, for the low income, for the daily wage workers, for the small businessmen, for the other, for example, entrepreneurs or bigger businessmen. So they have the different concerns, and our local authority, or we call the local organizations, they reach and they trying to communicate and trying to do. So this is, I think, the communication with our people. But they need a very, very strong local system to do that.
Thank you. Ahmed Durrani.
Yeah, good morning, Ambassador. Thank you very much for, again, a very erudite presentation. Two quick questions. This regards the Belt and Road Initiative of China, and therein, of course, CPEC. The first is on the overall Belt and Road Initiative, which is 60+ countries globally. What is the government's thinking in terms of debt relief to these countries? Second question is basically, specifically for Pakistan, yes, we have about $2.5 billion in a year of debt. Can you say something about that, how China will look at that? And a sub-question on that is there discussion to revise some of the low-hanging fruit from simply electricity or energy infrastructure to moving towards more health infrastructure? Thank you.
Because, sir, I think this is very relative right now, because I'm just going to the finance ministry to discuss this kind of arrangements. One thing is clear. First, that it is a global challenge. This economy will finally either is the cure or finally is could a problem. So how can we change this problem into a kind of opportunity? We need a cooperation. So BRI. This is a bigger initiative from the Chinese side. Right now, all these projects, generally, I can say that mostly these projects are still ongoing, but they are focused on the infrastructures. Like the CPEC, right now, our people basically are working on these motorways and all these hydropower stations, these things. So they are not, at this stage, they are not very much disturbed. But BRI members or not members or the partners, BRI partner basically they are developing countries, and they are occupying a very important part of the developing community of China, of the world. So their economic situation, you mentioned their debt cooperation or problems or something. Exactly, I think since we are cooperating under the BRI, China definitely has a kind of responsibility to look into their economic situation, fiscal situation, and financial situation. So With Pakistan, so far, I think that basically right now we are working through the multilateral mechanism. But bilaterally, I can assure you is that we are going to have some bilateral, we call it rearrangement or rescheduling of the possible debt. But how much and what this exactly, I'm going to check with Mr. Hafiz Sheikh, that what is your plan and what is your need, for example, at this stage. You are dealing with this coronavirus. At this stage, you are going to recover your economy, and relatively long stage when you are going to have a grander development. Because I think as a partner that we cannot only focus on the current stage, we have to relatively long. So in fact, I'm going to discuss. But one thing sure, so far we haven't finalized it, but we did find the shortage of this finance. But this is not only for Pakistan, but also for the international whole community. But one for Pakistan, that we are always, I think, special. That, for example, if you have any difficulty of the repayment of any loans or whatever, the Chinese government or Chinese institutions will never force you to pay back on this. Everything I think we can discuss and rearrange. But how much a scale, I don't know, because frankly speaking, right now that your falling debt is not our major concern, because the creditors, they are the Paris Club, they are the IMF, they are other international financiers. Our debt or the major loans to you will be matured. It's usually all the CPAC projects will be after the 2024. But there are some parts, for example, like you mentioned, the power plants, they have the capacity payment and this for that. I think that we are open to discuss and open to arrange all these rescheduling or whatever. So.
Thank you, Ambassador. Musharraf Zaidi. So Musharraf Zaidi runs the think tank called Sabat Lab, well-known commentator.
Thank you, Dr. Alim Haq, and my compliments again to PIDE and to your entire team for organizing these fantastic opportunities to exchange ideas. Excellency, just as a Pakistani, always such a great pleasure and a privilege to engage with China and to thank China for its unstinting partnership. One of the elements of the relationship that I've always found lacking, but where I think that COVID-19 might be offering a huge opportunity is how quickly China was able to move to cashless transactions, especially at the retail level. So whether it's companies like Tencent, the ability of chat applications like WeChat and the others to become instruments of payments so that there's no touching cash, which is a transmitter of disease as it is. And also, I mean, the quickness and the swiftness and the transparency that introduces, the opportunities it introduces in terms of revenue. Pakistan is ready for that kind of a transfer. And I wonder whether it needs Chinese aid, really. What is the thing that prevents those kinds of companies from becoming integrated within the Pakistani landscape? Thank you.
Yeah, you are very right. It's the digital-based sectors, in fact, are gaining a lot of popularity in China. For example, for our tracing system, it is a mobile, and there's a code in it. If you just show your mobile code, it is green, that means you are clean. If you are yellow, that means you are one of the members who have a certain contact with the potential patients. If you are red, that means you are patient. So everywhere you go in China, you have to show this kind of code to any kind of, I should say, whatever their residential area. So like this. But more importantly, like this, for example, like this, we call the cashless or transaction, online transaction. They are booming. They are quite booming. But finally, they still need a bigger community, a number of people who help them to deliver from one area to that another area, so that But with Pakistan, I think right now, for example, that Alibaba has already started this practice. In fact, in the Chinese community in Islamabad, they have already have their own system. They are right now purchasing everything from this app or whatever. So right now, even our embassy, we are purchasing from a certain shop in G8 or F8. They are sending us, but we ordered through the app. But in the larger scale, these digital companies or online companies have already established their contacts. For example, Alibaba with Palinur, they are going to initiate a nationwide service alarm very shortly. But this is a direction, sir. However, I think it is still strong, should be supported by a strong, for example, infrastructure, internet service, or this website coverage. Second is that a special team, still see a labor team to support that, for example, for logistical, for the production, and for the selection of these. But this, I think, for Pakistan is also is coming up. And our major online companies have already started, and this kind of virus could speed up, accelerate this kind of cooperation.
Thank you very much. Ambassador, do you have time for one more question? Or okay, then General Farooq sir is the ex-head of our NDMA. He managed the earthquake. So General Farooq, can you please ask Ambassador a quick question?
Hello, Farooq. I didn't see. Still, you remember me?
Ji, go ahead. Ji, General Saab, go ahead. I can't hear you.
General Farooq, I think when last time I was in Pakistan, he was the chairman of NDMA. You gave us great help when China was suffering the earthquake. Sir, did you remember we jointly visited Honduras?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Excellency. I do remember it. And it was lovely to interact with you at that time. My question is pertaining to the requirement of an international protocol on such like fighting such like pandemic in future, because world was clearly not prepared for this kind of an emergency. This would help in harmonizing the international effort to snuff out such a pandemic in the initial stages. So perhaps this initiative internationally could be led by China. Your comments, please.
I don't think that China is leading because different countries have the different approaches. But we do share that our experience through these two protocols. One is prevention and control. Second is diagnosis and treatment. Everything China has gained through this kind of experience, we have put it in these two protocols, and they are available on the website of our health commission. But I think right now you have a system, since you are the NDMA chairman, first one, I think. So in fact, every country has adopted a disaster-based approach. I think this is very important. Second is more coordinated. All the resources should be focused at this stage on dealing with this challenge. And thirdly, all the departments and agencies also should be focused on the current challenge. So that is, I think, what I can share with you, sir. I'm so glad, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Nice seeing you once again.
You're in Islamabad or in where?
No, I am in Lahore, Excellency.
A little far away for me. Oh, but I'm coming to visit you.
If you come to Lahore, one would like to meet you. Thank you, Excellency.
Excellency, thank you very much. We've taken up a lot of your time. Now I know you have to go and help out Pakistan with Hafiz. So our best wishes to you. You have helped us a great deal in understanding the Chinese approach and what China thinks. And I think all of us are very grateful. Excellency, thank you very much. And we look forward to being engaged with you.
Thank you for giving me this chance, and also I can see General Farouk, and whatever I can do, just let me know, sir. At your disposal.
All right. Right, Excellency. Thank you very much.
Give General a big, the ambassador applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Now we can sort of.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
हाँ जी, कैसा रहा जी? ठीक रहा?
हाँ बिल्कुल ठीक रहा नदीम, वेरी इम्प्रेसिव।
बड़े ऑर्गेनाइज लोग हैं यार, क्या करें?
हाँ यार, बड़े ऑर्गेनाइज लोग हैं और बड़े